She thought she had her whole life ahead of her, that she could just hit pause, fly off to Europe, post a couple of wine glasses on Instagram, hide behind words like, "I need to find myself," and return to the way things were, as if nothing had changed. What she didn't know was that while she was out searching, someone else had made a choice too. Not loud, not dramatic, but irreversible. He didn't shatter plates or beg her to stay. He simply changed everything. Quietly, deliberately, permanently. While she posed in front of sunsets and embraced new friends, he was erasing traces of her from the home they once shared. He didn't yell, he observed. And when she came back, she didn't find a wounded husband. She found someone who no longer waited, someone who had learned to let go, because sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't to hold on. It's to stop trying to save someone who never asked to be saved. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends or family. It really helps my channel a lot. Please tell me in which city or country you watched this video. I value every one of your comments. So, let's get started. They say there's a point in life when everything shifts, a single instant that cleaves your timeline into before and after. Mine arrived on an otherwise unremarkable Thursday evening, right after we cleared the dinner plates. Ophelia stood at the sink, rinsing dishes like it was any other weeknight. "I'm thinking about taking a trip," she said, casually, like she was telling me we were out of milk. "Just a few weeks. Europe." I paused mid-sip. "By yourself?" "Well, not exactly. Marissa and Lena are coming along, but it's something I need to do for me." She wouldn't look at me, just scrubbed at a pan like the words she was saying wouldn't echo for the rest of our lives. Marissa and Lena, both newly single, both navigating the ruins of messy breakups, both riding whatever wave of independence was currently in fashion. I didn't need to ask. I knew what kind of trip this was morphing into. "What is it you're hoping to discover there that you haven't found here?" I asked. She toweled her hands and met my gaze at last. "Ryan, I've never done anything that wasn't for someone else. I went straight from living at home into building a life with you. I need to figure out who I am again." We'd been married 4 years, just bought our first house a few months back. Sure, we'd had our struggles, but I thought we were steady, solid. Turns out, I'd been wrong. "It's not about partying," she added quickly, likely reading my face. "It's not that kind of thing. I just need some space to think." I nodded, slowly. "Space, so you can work out what you want. Before what? Before we start a family? Before things get too anchored to take off on a European soul-searching trip with Marissa and her Pilates guru? That's not fair." "Which part? The trip, or the fact you've made this decision without involving me?" She let out a sharp breath. "I knew you'd react like this. That's why I nearly waited until everything was booked before I told you. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't a negotiation. It was a declaration. She wasn't seeking permission. She was informing me. She left the following weekend. I didn't put up a fight. But that same night, I made a quiet decision of my own, one she'd never see coming. I drove her to the airport that morning, not out of love, but to deny her the satisfaction of painting me as difficult. She looked like she was off to brunch rather than about to cross an ocean. Linen blazer, massive sunglasses, a designer suitcase that cost more than my first car. "You all right?" she asked as we pulled up to the drop-off. "I'm fine," I replied, cutting the engine. "Got your passport?" She nodded, then paused. "You're being really quiet." I turned to her. "You're flying across the world with 2 women who treat relationships like hobbies, and you're surprised I'm not chatty?" She shook her head. "This is exactly why I needed space. You always twist everything." "It's not about cheating," she added. "No," I said. "But trips like this tend to nudge doors open that shouldn't even be cracked." She rolled her eyes and stepped out. I followed, grabbed her suitcase from the trunk. She kissed my cheek, like I was an old co-worker, not her husband. "I'll text when I land." "You don't need to," I said. Her expression tightened. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means go chase whatever it is you think you're missing. Just don't act like this is about us." She didn't answer, just took the handle of her suitcase and walked away. I stood there for a beat, then got back in the car and drove off, never once looking back. That afternoon, I started going through our finances. I wasn't aiming to blow anything up. I'm not the vengeful type. But I redirected my paycheck to a separate account, canceled the fall vacation we'd booked, made sure the refund went to my card, changed the billing info on everything we shared, utilities, insurance, subscriptions, subtle shifts, but they added up. We weren't officially splitting. Not yet. But I wasn't about to keep living like I had a partner who still honored her vows. Let her go find herself. I'd stay right here, paying attention. By day 4, the first photo hit my feed. A wine glass on a patio table, cobblestone street behind it. Caption: "Lost in Lisbon, finding clarity." Lisbon wasn't even on the original itinerary. Then came Seville, Milan, Nice. Clearly, the plan had gone out the window. Now they were city-hopping like college kids with Eurail passes, untethered and floating. Each post carefully curated, hand-painted tapas plates, shimmering coastal sunsets, sandy feet on foreign beaches. Ophelia laughing with Marissa. Ophelia posing with abstract art. Ophelia twirling in maxi dresses and hiding behind massive sunglasses. But one photo stopped me cold. A group shot, her, Marissa, Lena, and 3 guys I'd never seen before. One had his arm wrapped around Ophelia's waist. No tags, no explanation. Just the caption, "New friends, old souls." I stared at it for a long time, then opened a folder on my desktop and started saving screenshots. Call it paranoia, call it preparation. Either way, I was finished giving her the benefit of the doubt. No comments, no messages, no reaction. She sent one text that week. "Hey, hope things are good back home. We just got to Barcelona." The view was breathtaking. I didn't reply to her message. The next day, Marissa posted a clip from a beachfront lounge. Ophelia was in the frame, barefoot with a cocktail in hand, moving gently to the rhythm of the music. That same guy from the earlier picture was right beside her, no shirt, leaning in close, whispering something just out of earshot. She didn't flinch or pull away. I watched the video more than once before saving it alongside the others. I didn't reach out, didn't ask questions. I simply waited. And then, nearly a month later, Ophelia stepped into our house like nothing had happened at all. She let her luggage fall by the door and flashed a radiant smile, as if she'd just returned from conquering the world. "It feels incredible to be back," she said, stretching with a yawn. "You wouldn't believe the train delays in Italy." I was standing by the kitchen island, arms folded. Her eyes drifted around the room. "You moved some things?" "I had the time," I said. She came closer, leaning in for a kiss. I angled away, letting her lips graze my cheek. Her smile faltered. "You're mad?" "No," I said. "You're back. Isn't that all that matters?" She chuckled softly, though the sound carried an edge of unease. "Okay. Listen. I know how it might have looked, but it wasn't what you're thinking. We just needed some space, that's all." Looked like you found someone to share that space with. A beat passed before she said, "So, you saw the posts." "I saw plenty." "Oh, Ryan, you know how it is. People end up in the same frame sometimes. Doesn't mean a thing. You weren't wearing your wedding ring." She grimaced. It felt safer not to. We were tourists. Standing out can attract attention. I said nothing. She turned and unzipped her suitcase, rummaging through it before holding out a tiny Vespa keychain. "I got you something. Thought of you when I saw it. You always said you wanted to visit Rome." I accepted it, placed it on the counter, and pulled an envelope from a drawer. I handed it to her without a word. She opened it slowly. Inside was a bank confirmation showing our joint accounts being split. Underneath that were the first documents to buy out her share of the house. I'd also included a contact card for the moving company I'd already hired. She stared at the papers like they were written in another language. "You're asking me to leave?" she said, stunned. "You said you needed space," I replied, calm. "I made sure you'd have enough." Her voice cracked. "All this because of one trip?" I took a sip from my coffee. "No, because of a choice. One you made without me." She slumped onto the sofa, looking rattled. "It was never supposed to be permanent, Ryan. I just needed time to think." "Time to do what?" I asked. "To flirt your way through Europe? Pretend you were single again? What exactly were you hoping to come back to?" She shook her head, like I was the unreasonable one. "You're taking this too far. You won't even let me explain." "You had 4 weeks," I said. "All I got were sunny pictures and captions that said nothing." "I didn't sleep with him. But you thought about it, didn't you?" The silence that followed said more than any admission could. "You think not acting on it makes it harmless?" I said. "You erased me the second you boarded that plane. You wanted freedom, Ophelia, and you got it. But freedom comes with a cost." Her eyes welled with tears. "So that's it? Just like that?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I went to the hall closet, pulled out the duffel bag I'd already packed for her, and placed it by the couch. "You can stay with Marissa. Or Lena. You've got options." She got to her feet, her voice shaky. "You're really doing this?" I met her gaze. "I told you not to pretend this trip was for us. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine." There was no shouting, no drama, just the dense, unspoken weight of an ending settling into the room. By the end of the week, she was gone. Marissa arrived in her compact blue hatchback to help load up Ophelia's things. She didn't say much, just nodded stiffly when I answered the door, muttered a flat, "Hey," and walked down the hall toward the bedroom. Ophelia kept quiet too. She moved around like a visitor, gathering her belongings. She took down photos from the walls, cleared out drawers, left a half-used bottle of shampoo in the shower, like she couldn't quite finish letting go. At one point, she paused in the doorway, watching me type at the dining table. "This still doesn't feel real," she whispered. I didn't lift my head. "It is. I thought maybe we could fix it. Once I came back. You should have thought about that before you left without me." That weekend, my brother Alec came over with his truck. We loaded the last of her boxes into storage. He didn't demand explanations, just gathered his things, secured them carefully, and drove off. Once his taillights faded into the night, I stayed outside on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket, sipping slowly from a glass of whiskey. The house felt different now. Quieter, yes, but not vacant. The stillness wasn't a void. It was something that felt entirely mine. I wasn't furious. I wasn't broken. I was simply released. The same kind of freedom she had chased halfway across the globe. Strange how I found it without ever leaving home. 2 weeks slipped by before she reached out again. A number I didn't recognize flashed across my phone screen. I let it ring until it stopped. Then the emails started arriving. "Can we talk? Just one conversation, Ryan. Please." I said nothing. The following afternoon, I spotted her standing outside the house, arms crossed over her chest like armor, trying not to look affected. When I walked out the door, she approached like we hadn't just dismantled everything. "I've been trying to get in touch," she said. "I know," I replied, sliding my key into the lock. "You really moved on this fast?" "I started moving the second you said you needed space." She hesitated, like she was adjusting her approach. I made a mistake. I met her gaze without flinching. "No, you made a choice. You just don't like the outcome. I thought we were stronger than this." "No, Ophelia, I was strong. You were uncertain." She flinched like the words had landed squarely. You don't mean that. I mean every word. Slowly, she reached into her purse and brought out a small black box. Inside was my wedding ring. I kept it the whole time. I never even took it out. Then it still traveled farther than our marriage ever did. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Just stunned silence. I stepped around her, heading for my car. Her voice broke as she called after me. So that's it? I glanced over my shoulder once. You wanted freedom, Ophelia. Now you have it. I climbed in, started the engine, and this time, I never looked back. It's been 5 months since that day. The house was sold. We divided the necessary things. No drawn-out battles, no courtroom scenes, no theatrics, just simple goodbyes and clean exits. I downsized, moved closer to the office. 1 bedroom, simple, quiet, mine. I took up running again. Thursday nights, I attend a photography class. It's strange how the little parts of yourself start resurfacing when you stop bleeding out for someone who wouldn't have lifted a finger to save you. Friends still mention her sometimes. Are you sure you don't want to talk it through? She's been seeing a therapist. Maybe she's changed. Maybe. But I no longer need to know. That's what real peace offers you, the freedom to stop wondering. Word is she's been dating here and there, nothing serious, nothing lasting. Then, one day, she sent a final message. A photo. That old Vespa-shaped keychain from Rome resting in her hand. No caption. I deleted it without responding. What she doesn't realize is that I still have mine, not as a keepsake of her, but as a marker. A reminder that love, the real kind, isn't about grand reunions or tearful makeups. It's about staying. Staying when it's uncomfortable. Staying when escape masquerades as freedom. Staying when the world whispers that something brighter might be just around the corner. She left in search of herself. I stayed and found who I was. I've started seeing someone new, no rush, no fireworks, just something steady. The kind of warmth that doesn't demand attention but fills the room regardless. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you liked this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you. A dinner meant to celebrate years of partnership shatters with a single sentence. I think we should have an open marriage. And if you're not willing, I'll just start seeing your boss. The words fall into the silence, cold and unrelenting, as the life they've built together begins to crack apart. What seemed like an impulsive idea quickly spirals into a calculated betrayal, dragging in more than just their relationship. A quiet ultimatum transforms into a ruthless game of manipulation, where trust is sacrificed for promises of excitement and power. He never expected to find himself at the crossroads of love and humiliation, but there, among the shattered pieces, one thing becomes clear. This won't be the end of his journey. It's only the beginning of something far more dangerous and personal. A decision is made, and soon he will realize. Some betrayals aren't meant to break you. They're meant to reshape you. And when the dust settles, it's not just his marriage that's gone. It's a part of himself he never thought he'd lose. What's left is a man who's about to take control of everything he's worked so hard for, and there's nothing that will stand in his way. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends or family. It really helps my channel a lot. Please tell me in which city or country you watch this video. I value every one of your comments. So, let's get started. I think we should have an open marriage, and if you're not willing, I'll just start seeing your boss. The words seemed to slice through the room, leaving everything unnaturally still. I froze mid-bite, fork suspended in the air, trying to wrap my head around what I'd just heard. There was no trace of a joke in her tone, no indication that she was speaking in hypotheticals. Instead, her gaze was cold and unwavering, more resolute than I'd ever seen. You can't be serious, I managed at last, slowly placing my utensils aside as my appetite faded. "I've never been more sure of anything," she answered, swirling her wine like she'd just commented on the rain, not threatened to destroy our marriage. "I've been thinking about this for a while. Being exclusive just doesn't work for me anymore." My thoughts raced, replaying recent days and weeks, looking for missed warning signs. We'd been together since our teenage years, married at 23, and had spent the last 7 years building a life side by side. Like any couple, we had our imperfections, but who doesn't? Yet nothing could have prepared me for the shock she just delivered. "Why him? Why my boss?" I pressed, my shock shifting into something sharper. "Has something already happened between the two of you?" She looked away at last. "We've been talking." "Talking?" I repeated, the word suddenly weighted. "He understands me in a way you just don't anymore." There was more to this than just a passing thought. There was history. My boss, 15 years my senior, a familiar face at our table, the man who toasted our last anniversary, had clearly become something more. I stood up so fast my chair nearly fell over. "This isn't about being open. You just want permission to be with someone you're already interested in. Someone who controls my career." She gave an exasperated sigh. "Don't be so melodramatic." "It won't affect your job," she insisted, waving away my concerns as though they were trivial. "He's perfectly capable of keeping personal and professional things apart." Her casual disregard stung more than anything else. I found myself gripping the kitchen counter, trying to steady myself. "How long has this been going on?" "Does it really make a difference?" She sighed. "I'm unhappy, and this is what I need." She stepped closer, placing her hand on my shoulder as though that could calm me. I shrugged her off. "So the ultimatum is this. Either I go along with you sleeping with my boss, or you'll do it anyway." My voice was quiet, cold. "I'm trying to be honest instead of sneaking around," she replied, as if that made it all reasonable. "But yes, I've made my decision. I want to pursue this. It would be easier if you supported me." Something hardened in me then. Yes, I was hurt, but beneath that was something stronger, a sense of self-respect I didn't realize I'd lost. "Let's be clear," I said, turning to face her. "I'm not agreeing to this, especially not with threats and manipulation. If you're set on being with him, it won't be as my wife." She looked taken aback, like she hadn't expected me to set a boundary. Maybe she thought I'd be too scared to lose her to actually stand up for myself. "You don't mean that," she said, her confidence faltering. "I've never meant anything more," I said, already making my way to our bedroom to pack an overnight bag. "I'm staying at a hotel. When I return tomorrow, we'll discuss how to move forward with a separation." She followed after me, her tone swinging from pleading to accusatory. I was making too much out of it. I was being possessive. I was about to destroy our marriage over an idea that could bring back the excitement. But I left that night with only a duffel bag, feeling the sting of betrayal, yet also more certain of myself than I'd been in a long time. The woman I'd once trusted, the partner I'd envisioned a future with, now seemed like a stranger. That first night away dragged on endlessly, sleep out of reach as I sifted through memories, wondering where I'd missed the signs. My phone buzzed constantly, messages alternating between regret and accusations that I wasn't willing to grow with her. By morning, my mind was made up. Before I faced her again, I needed the truth. Had anything already happened, or was this just talk? I waited for her to leave. Her Saturday yoga class always gave me a 2-hour window. I'd never imagined myself searching through my wife's private messages, but these weren't ordinary circumstances. Her laptop sat open in her office, password unchanged, my birthday. What I found was chilling. Emails, texts, even photos, a pattern stretching back nearly 3 months. Far from innocent, their contact was frequent and intimate. They'd shared lunches, grabbed coffee, had late-night conversations while I was working overtime, Their messages grew more personal, my boss telling her I couldn't possibly relate to her the way he did. The most recent exchanges discussed how to convince me to join in their new arrangement. My manager portrayed the concept of an open marriage as something sophisticated and forward-thinking, urging me to value the supposed transparency. They'd clearly practiced how the conversation would unfold, even joking about how they pictured I'd react. As I copied files onto a USB stick, my hands shook with a turbulent blend of rage and grim vindication. This wasn't a sudden urge to change our relationship. It was a carefully orchestrated deception they hoped to legitimize after the fact. What cut deepest was stumbling upon a message where they speculated that going along with their scheme might actually benefit my professional life. I was almost finished when I heard the front door squeak open. Her yoga class must have ended early. I quickly closed the laptop, slipped the USB into my pocket, and tried to calm myself as her footsteps approached the office. She appeared in the doorway, still dressed for yoga, genuine surprise in her voice. "What are you doing in here?" "Just clearing my head," I replied, standing up from her desk. "How was your class?" Her eyes darted from me to her computer, suspicion evident. "It was okay," she answered guardedly. "I thought you wanted us to take some space and reflect," she said. "I've done plenty of reflecting, plus some digging," I replied, letting her glimpse the USB before tucking it away. 3 months' worth, actually. She turned ghostly pale. "You went through my messages? How could you invade my privacy like that?" Her indignation was almost comical. "Privacy?" I echoed. "Now you care about boundaries? After you and my supervisor plotted how best to persuade me to accept your affair?" I pressed. Her confidence crumbled. "It wasn't like that," she said weakly. "We were just exploring possibilities." "Possibilities? Like offering me career advancement if I agreed to your terms?" I shot back, watching as the truth registered. "Or the part where you both mocked me for being emotionally unavailable just because I wasn't willing to share my spouse?" She slumped against the doorframe, her earlier defiance gone. "You weren't supposed to find out like this," she whispered. "And how was I meant to find out?" I demanded. "After you'd slept with him? Or after I caught whatever you might bring home? Or was I never meant to know, left oblivious while you both laughed at my expense?" She shook her head, her voice breaking. "I never wanted to hurt you." "That's the problem," I replied, brushing past her on my way out. "You never once considered what this would do to me. It was always about making things easy for yourself." I paused at the door and turned back. "I've already contacted legal counsel," I said icily. "They'll be in touch about the divorce. Feel free to pursue whatever you and my boss want. Just leave me out of it." As I walked to my car, a strange sense of lightness settled over me, despite the turmoil. The person I believed I loved was gone. Or maybe she never truly existed. The pain would eventually catch up, but at that moment, I felt only certainty that leaving was the only real option. When Monday arrived, it carried both anxiety and determination. I spent Sunday steeling myself for what was to come. Stepping into the office, it felt as though everyone could see right through me, though none of my coworkers suspected the storm beneath the surface. They greeted me with routine small talk, unaware that our boss had been scheming with my wife. I kept my focus on the quarterly report due that week, trying to maintain composure. At 11:30 a.m. sharp, I sent an email to my boss asking to meet privately at noon. His response was quick, the tone as nonchalant as ever, a cruel irony given what I knew. At exactly noon, I knocked on his door, USB secure in my pocket, and a resignation letter ready on my phone. "Come in," he called. He sat at his imposing desk, every inch the respectable executive in his tailored suit. Family photos, his former wife and kids, lined the shelves, a stark contrast to his actions. "Take a seat." He gestured to the chair with a smile that now struck me as predatory. "What brings you by today?" "I think you already know," I said, refusing to sit. My wife filled me in on your proposition last Friday. His expression changed, though he tried to remain composed. I understand. And how do you feel about exploring new experiences? Plenty of couples find these arrangements fulfilling, he responded, as if imparting wisdom about a sophisticated lifestyle. The smugness in his voice was almost unbearable. Without a word, I placed the USB on his desk. There's something you need to understand. I've kept meticulous records of every conversation you and my wife have exchanged over the last 3 months. Every chat, every email, every plan you two crafted to nudge me toward accepting your relationship. I have it all documented. The shock was immediate. He went pale. That's a pretty serious invasion of privacy, he managed to mumble. I pressed on. Just so you know, I've forwarded key messages to my personal email, sent a copy to my attorney, and set up a backup to go to HR and even your ex-wife if anything suspicious happens to me or to my job. In truth, I hadn't actually shared anything yet, but the bluff hit its mark. Wait, he sputtered, standing up suddenly. Let's not turn this into a personal vendetta. We're grown-ups. We can deal with this as adults. You mean like the grown-up talk where you implied my career would benefit if I just accepted you having an affair with my wife? I shot back. Or when you called me childish because I care about loyalty? I pulled out my phone and opened the resignation letter I'd prepared in advance. I'm not here to argue or make deals. I came to deliver my immediate resignation. He looked absolutely blindsided. You'd really throw away your job over this? He pleaded. Let's be reasonable. We can sort this out. My mind's made up, I told him. I'm leaving a workplace tainted by someone who refuses to respect boundaries, relationships, or even basic professionalism. Right then and there, I sent my resignation email to both him and HR. One more thing, I added. I've accepted a position with your rival. They saw the value in my portfolio and experience. That part was true. I'd spent my Sunday networking and had landed a slightly better paying job by Monday. You can't just walk away like this, he protested, but I didn't let him finish. I already have. I set my company phone and security badge down on his desk. My wife and I are divorcing. She's all yours now. Best wishes to you both with your modern, enlightened relationship. As I made for the exit, he called out behind me. This is insane. You're blowing everything out of proportion. We could still work this out. I paused at the door. Standing up for myself and refusing to be pushed around is the most adult thing I can do. If you reach out to me for anything other than a proper project handoff, I'll consider it harassment. Walking out felt like surfacing after months of suffocating. Some colleagues watched in confusion as I packed up the few things I had at my desk, but I let the office gossip sort out the details. That chapter of my life ended right there. By the time I reached my car, my phone was buzzing. Texts from my soon-to-be ex-wife, no doubt after a frantic call from my now former boss. Her messages cycled between frantic apologies and furious accusations, blaming me for ruining both our marriage and her new relationship. I silenced my phone without reading more. As I drove away for the last time, I felt a smile tug at my lips. For the first time in a long while, I was finally steering my own future. Whatever came next, it would be on my terms. The next 2 weeks blurred past. I moved into a new place, started my new job, and officially filed for divorce. My wife kept reaching out, begging for forgiveness one day, lashing out at me the next. I replied only through my attorney when it came to practical matters. What caught me off guard was an invitation to Sunday dinner from her parents. Despite everything, they'd always treated me like family, so I couldn't bring myself to ignore them. We met at their home, a cozy place where I'd spent many holidays. When I arrived, only her parents were there. Clearly, they hadn't told their daughter I'd be coming. Her mother greeted me with a long hug, and her father's handshake was warm and steady. She doesn't know you're here, her mother whispered, leading me to the dining room. We wanted to talk to you alone first. The table was set for 3, so it was obvious this meeting was planned. Over dinner, We chatted about mundane things, work, the weather. Only after the plates were cleared did her father get serious. "We know what's been going on," he said, voice level. "She came to us last week, asking us to side with her." I set my glass down and replied calmly, "I'm grateful you asked me here, but I want to be clear. The divorce will go ahead. There's no chance for reconciliation after all that's happened." "We're not here to try and change your mind," her mother said quietly as she sat back down. "We want you to know we don't approve of her choices. Not even a little." That admission caught me off guard. Usually, parents instinctively defend their child, no matter the circumstances. I was at a loss for words, so I stayed silent. Her father continued. "She told us everything, assuming we'd take her side. Thought we'd try to convince you that her version of an open marriage made sense. But we raised her with different values than that." Her mother's voice quivered as she began to speak, her eyes glossy with tears she refused to let fall. "We're heartbroken over the decisions she's made," she admitted softly. "The threats, her relationship with your manager, this isn't what we instilled in her about marriage." The emotion in the room made it difficult for me to find my voice, but I managed a quiet, "Thank you for being honest with me." I'd worried that they might see me as the one who abandoned their daughter. Instead, her father looked at me in disbelief. "Left her?" "No, not at all. If anything, you showed far more restraint than I ever could have," he said in a gruff tone. "Resigning from your job, landing another position, and moving forward with the divorce without smearing her name, that took real dignity." He gave me a nod of respect. "You handled the entire ordeal admirably." Before I had a chance to respond, something unexpected happened. The front door swung open, and her voice echoed through the house as she called for her parents. She had arrived without warning. The moment she entered the dining room and caught sight of me sitting with her mother and father, she froze, her face shifting rapidly from surprise to anger. "What is this?" she demanded, scanning our faces. "Is this supposed to be some kind of ambush?" Her agitation and confusion were obvious. Her father rose from his chair and answered with steady authority, "No, we're simply having a meal with someone we still think of as family." "I'm your daughter," she protested, her voice rising. But her father was resolute. "And at this moment, I've never been more disappointed in you. We raised you to honor your promises and treat others with respect, not to lie and manipulate." She turned to her mother, searching for comfort, but none was offered. Her mother's reply was gentle but unwavering. "Your father is correct. There's no excuse for what you've done. The man you married deserved far better." For a second, her mother's facade slipped, but she quickly hid her pain behind a look of defiance. "So now you're taking his side?" She rounded on me, her words edged with resentment. "After everything I confided in you about how unhappy I was?" I kept my tone steady as I replied, "Being unhappy doesn't justify betrayal. You could have talked to me, asked for help, suggested counseling, or even asked for a divorce, but you chose to shatter the trust we built together." She turned back to her parents, incredulous. "He left me, and you're acting like he's the victim." Her father's response was quick and unyielding. "He didn't abandon you. The marriage ended when you were unfaithful and issued that ultimatum." As she glanced around at the three of us, it was obvious she realized she wouldn't find any allies here. "Fine," she said icily, striding toward the exit. "If that's how you all feel, I'm better off alone." She hesitated in the doorway, adding bitterly, "And by the way, things with my boss fell apart. Turns out he wasn't interested in anything real." With that, she left, slamming the door behind her and leaving a heavy, lingering silence. Her mother quietly wiped away her tears while her father remained still, staring at the closed door. Finally, her mother spoke up. "We're so sorry. We truly thought we had taught her better than this." I reached out, gently taking her hand in comfort. "You did not fail her," I assured her in a soft voice. "She is accountable for her own choices. The way you responded tonight speaks to your character." Later, as I drove home, I reflected on how people can surprise you in times of crisis. The very people I thought I'd lose through this divorce had instead demonstrated kindness and integrity. Though the pain lingered, their support made me certain that I'd made the right decision. 3 months slipped by. The divorce was uncomplicated. No children, and a simple division of assets made the process smooth. My new position was going well, and I'd already been assigned a major project, thanks in part to my insider's knowledge of my previous employer. The irony of it all wasn't lost on me. One evening, as I returned home from work, my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I picked up. "Hello?" I asked, wary. On the other end, her voice was unmistakable, tinged with slurred speech. "We need to talk," she said. "Can I come over?" My response was immediate and firm. "No. If you have anything to discuss, please do it through our lawyers." She let out a shaky sigh, her composure beginning to crumble. "The attorneys don't care that my life is falling apart." "Nobody cares. Not my parents, not my friends, no one," she continued, her voice wavering. Despite everything, I felt a flicker of concern. "What's going on?" I asked gently. "Everything's unraveling," she said with a bitter laugh. "My parents barely speak to me. My friends sided with you once they learned the truth. And now I've lost my job." That last revelation caught me off guard. "You were fired?" I asked, surprised. "Yes. Turns out having an affair with the boss creates all sorts of problems when it ends," she replied with a mocking tone. "He went to HR after I got upset, claimed I was causing drama at work." I closed my eyes, rubbing my forehead, caught between a grim sense of justice and genuine sympathy for her situation. While part of me recognized the fairness in what had happened, I didn't take pleasure in her suffering. "I'm sorry you're having such a hard time," I said quietly, "but I'm no longer the person you can turn to." "Is there another person?" she pressed, her words sharp as knives. "For so long, you were my safe place, the one person I believed would never betray me. That changed the day you decided I was no longer enough." My reply was steady, my resolve clear. "These choices were yours, not mine. Now you must face the consequences, just as any grown-up must." She pleaded, her voice raw. "Let me come by, just for a little while. 20 minutes, please. I have to see you." My response was unwavering, this time with finality. "No. That chapter of our story has closed. I'm moving on, and it's time for you to learn how to do the same." A tense silence stretched between us, before she finally broke it, her tone cold. "You act as if you're above me, as if you're some paragon of virtue." "This isn't about being better than you," I told her, letting out a slow breath. "It's about boundaries, about self-respect." Her voice turned harsh, full of accusation. "You'll wish you hadn't done this. One day, you'll realize exactly what you've thrown away." I knew precisely what I was leaving behind, and I had never been so certain of any decision. Without hesitation, I ended the call and blocked her number. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened the following week. During lunch, a colleague mentioned a post that had begun to circulate among our professional acquaintances. It was a long, emotional message, written by my ex. In it, she painted herself as the abandoned wife, left alone in hardship, claiming I refused to fix our marriage. She made no mention of her infidelity, nor of the ultimatum she'd given me. In her retelling, I became the heartless partner who bailed when times got tough. Not long after, mutual friends started reaching out in private, clearly confused by the conflicting accounts. I'd never aired the details of our split, not even to those closest to me. Now, faced with this public distortion, I had a choice to make. Should I let her version go unaddressed, or was it time to finally speak for myself? After careful consideration, I crafted a single measured reply. "I have always valued my privacy and will not discuss my divorce in public." I wish everyone involved healing and growth, but I cannot allow falsehoods to damage my reputation or integrity. The facts are a matter of legal record, and I am prepared to provide documentation to any relevant party if necessary. To those who know me, thank you for your continued respect for my privacy at this time. I posted it once and decided not to engage further. The outpouring of support was immediate. Messages came in from friends, co-workers, and even some of her relatives. Her father reached out to me personally, apologizing for her actions and explaining that the family had confronted her about the fabricated post. Within a day, her message vanished from the internet. 48 hours later, my attorney received a formal written apology from her, along with a signed commitment to remain silent about our relationship and divorce from that point on. That entire ordeal reinforced a lesson I'd been learning throughout this journey. Preserving your self-respect and refusing to sink to petty revenge isn't just the right thing to do. It's wise. While she was alienating people and burning bridges, I quietly focused on mending what mattered, strengthening my professional ties, and moving forward with my life. That weekend, I went out for coffee, the first date I'd had since our separation. I met someone through work. The conversation flowed naturally, unburdened by the shadows of betrayal or deceit. For the first time in ages, I laughed without bitterness, free from the cynicism that had seeped into my sense of humor since everything fell apart. Driving home afterward, the realization hit me. I was no longer chained to my past. The divorce was merely a chapter, not the whole narrative. I had survived the deepest betrayal and come out the other side stronger, more secure, and more grounded in my values than ever before. The man who once stayed late at the office while his wife met secretly with his boss was gone. In his place stood someone who recognized his own worth, unwilling to compromise it for anyone. This transformation was something no one, not even my ex-wife, could have foreseen when she handed down her ultimatum all those months ago. Exactly 1 year after that fateful dinner where she gave me her demands, I found myself in my company's conference room, newly promoted to senior director. The project I had led brought in 3 major clients, establishing my reputation as a rising star in the industry. My personal life had evolved just as much. I'd surrounded myself with a close circle of genuine friends, and I'd been dating someone new for 4 months, a woman who truly appreciated the value of honesty and trust. After celebrating my promotion with colleagues over dinner, I was walking to my car when my phone buzzed with a text from an unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I looked. "I'm outside your apartment. We need to talk. It's urgent. Please." Her writing was unmistakable. Somehow she had managed to get around my block. Part of me wanted to ignore her entirely, but another part craved closure, a true sense of finality. I responded, "I'm not at home, and I won't meet you anywhere private. If there's something you need to say, you can meet me at the Main Street coffee shop in 30 minutes. That's the only option I'll give you." Her answer arrived almost immediately. I promised I would show up. The cafe was just busy enough to prevent complete privacy, but quiet enough to ensure our conversation would go unheard. On purpose, I arrived a few minutes behind schedule. My eyes swept the room until I found her, seated alone in a shadowy corner booth, waiting. She appeared drastically different than when we last parted. Gone was the composed, commanding woman who once delivered that harsh ultimatum. Even her hair was styled differently now. Her attire was more subdued as well, nothing as attention-grabbing as before. But the real change was in her gaze. Where arrogance had once been evident, there was now a subtle humility. After ordering a coffee at the counter, I crossed the floor to her table and sat across from her, careful to maintain a professional air. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know if you'd come," she continued. I wasted no time. "Why did you want to meet?" My tone made it clear I had no patience for small talk. She drew in a steady breath. "I needed to apologize, to do it the right way. No lawyers, no intermediaries, no online messages. I wanted to face you directly. I waited in silence, urging her to continue. What I did to you can't be justified, she said, voice controlled, but emotions clear beneath. The infidelity, the threats, the manipulation, all of it. I've spent the past year trying to understand how I could harm someone who treated me with nothing but decency and respect. And did you ever find an answer? I asked, my tone level. She managed a faint, regretful smile. Therapy offered some clarity, she said. Apparently, I'm skilled at destroying things that are good for me, always chasing approval, inviting chaos when things are steady, because turmoil feels safer. She paused, searching for the right words. That doesn't make what I did okay. I nodded in recognition, though I made no move toward forgiveness. I also know what I gave up, she continued in a low voice. I lost someone who loved me, families that welcomed me, the possibility of a life built on something real rather than conflict. She looked down at her untouched drink. My parents barely speak to me these days. They include me in family gatherings, but only out of duty. Things will never be what they were. Their decision was about their values. And so was mine, I replied quietly. She nodded, meeting my eyes with a rare openness. I'm not trying to change your mind or ask you to come back. I know you've moved forward. I've seen photos. You seem happy. Her mention of my current life surprised me, but I let it slide. I needed to come here, because in order for me to truly move on, I have to try to make things right where I can. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want to acknowledge the pain I caused and own up to it. For the first time since her final demand, I felt something inside me shift. Not forgiveness, but a recognition of the courage it took to confront her actions openly. I appreciate your apology, I said softly. I hope therapy keeps helping you. She seemed to understand this was the only thing I could offer. One more thing, she said, reaching into her bag and pulling out an envelope. The final divorce paperwork came through last month, as you know, but I also wanted to give you this. She slid the envelope toward me. Inside was a cashier's check for a substantial amount, well beyond what the settlement required. What's this? I asked, genuinely confused. It's what I took from our shared savings before we split, plus interest, she explained. My lawyer told me I didn't need to do this, but she shrugged slightly. It just felt right. I watched her carefully for any hint of insincerity, but her regret seemed real. Thank you, I finally said, tucking the envelope away. Anything else? She shook her head. No, I just hope you're doing well. You really deserve to be. I stood to leave, but paused, feeling compelled to offer her something in return for her honesty. I am doing well. Better than I could have imagined, I told her. She gave a bittersweet smile, accepting and sad at once. I'm glad. Truly. Stepping outside into the cool air, I felt a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying suddenly lift. There were no dramatic reconciliations, no fairy tale endings where old wounds disappeared. Only two people finally accepting a past that had reshaped them both. Once in my car, I called my girlfriend to let her know I was on my way. As her familiar voice answered, I glanced one last time at the cafe. The ultimatum that once threatened to trap me had, in the end, set me free. Free to discover strength I didn't know I possessed, to build better boundaries, to choose relationships rooted in honesty and mutual respect, not control. Free to craft a life where trust was a foundation, not a vulnerability. Sometimes, it's the deepest betrayals that propel us toward where we're meant to be, not in spite of the pain, but because of it. That dinner a year ago didn't break me. It cleared the path for something far better. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you. He thought he knew his wife, thought their 7-year bond could survive any storm. But when an evening that began with a refined dinner ended with a blood-chilling proposition, it became clear. There was no turning back. When the person you love smiles at you, looks you in the eye, and casually suggests destroying everything you've built together, how do you ever stay the same? He came to the city of sin hoping to reconnect, but he left broken, hollow, and alone. Yet before he walked away, he left a mark that won't be forgotten. Not by her, not by him, not by you. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends or family. It really helps my channel a lot. Please tell me in which city or country you watched this video. I value every one of your comments. So, let's get started. They always say what happens in Vegas stays there. But that's not entirely true. Some choices cling to you like a second skin, tearing apart the life you once thought was unshakable. Never in my wildest thoughts did I expect a trip to Las Vegas with my wife Virginia to leave me wrestling with betrayal, devastation, and a truth that would upend everything. Virginia had been planting the idea of a Vegas getaway for months. One morning, she looked up from her laptop, a gleam in her hazel eyes and a wide smile on her face. "I just booked us a suite at the Venetian," she said brightly, turning the screen toward me. Her excitement was infectious. "We deserve this, just the two of us. A real break." I didn't see any reason to refuse. After 7 years together, while things between us weren't perfect, I believed they were solid. This trip seemed like the perfect opportunity to reconnect, maybe even reignite a spark we hadn't felt in a while. Vegas was exactly what I had imagined, a kaleidoscope of neon lights, constant noise, and a reckless undercurrent promising that anything could happen. But by our second night, something shifted in Virginia. We were having dinner at a rooftop restaurant, gazing out over the glittering chaos of the Strip. She was twirling her martini by the stem, her cheeks glowing with excitement, when she casually dropped a grenade. "I heard about something interesting," she said, stirring her drink slowly. "There's a party. For swingers." I almost choked on my steak. "A what?" I managed to sputter. "A swingers party," she repeated, her voice oddly nonchalant. "Couples go to explore, try new experiences. It's supposed to make relationships stronger." "Stronger?" I echoed, my pulse hammering. "By sleeping with other people?" I tried to keep my voice even, but I could feel the anger rising. "It's not like that," she said quickly, leaning in closer, her voice soft and coaxing. "It's just for one night. A lot of couples do it." I set my fork down harder than intended. "Absolutely not." Her smile faded, replaced by a sharp edge. "Why are you being so rigid? We've been in a rut for a long time. Maybe this could be exactly what we need." I shook my head, struggling to control my temper. "Virginia, if you honestly believe the way to fix our marriage is by throwing ourselves into something like that, maybe our problems are deeper than I thought." She crossed her arms tightly over her chest, her gaze hard. "It's not sleazy. It's freeing. You're being judgmental. And you're being reckless," I snapped back. "Listen to yourself. You think this is the solution? I'm telling you now, I want no part of it." The argument followed us back to the suite, the air between us thick with bitterness and anger. She accused me of being controlling. I accused her of trampling everything we had spent years building. When I woke the next morning, she was gone. Her purse was missing, along with the black stilettos she wore whenever she wanted to feel unstoppable. I sat at the edge of the bed, gripping my phone, my mind spiraling through every worst-case scenario imaginable. It wasn't until after noon that I finally got a text from her. "Out. Be back later." Later stretched on endlessly. When she finally walked back into the suite, the sky outside was bleeding into twilight. I asked her where she'd been, but she dodged the question, her mind clearly somewhere else. And then she dropped another bombshell. "I'm going to the party tonight. she said, her voice flat, almost emotionless. I stared at her in disbelief. You're serious? She nodded. I've made my decision. I stood up from the bed, my voice cold and controlled. Virginia, if you walk out that door tonight, there's no coming back. She rolled her eyes and let out a huff. You're being dramatic. It's just one night. No, I said firmly. It's not just one night. It's a line you're choosing to cross. And you already have. She threw up her hands in exasperation. Why does everything with you have to be a threat? Why can't you just trust me for once? Trust you? I let out a harsh, bitter laugh. You want me to trust you while you go sleep with strangers? That's not what this is about, she shouted back, her voice shaking with anger. It's about being open, trying something new. Tons of couples do this. It's healthy. Healthy? I repeated, the word sour on my tongue. How does breaking every promise we made make us stronger? She folded her arms again, her face hard. You're impossible. I'm trying to grow, to explore, and you're slamming the door shut. Because it's insanity, I shouted, unable to bottle it any longer. You're not saving our marriage. You're setting fire to it. That's not true, she whispered, her voice finally cracking. I need this, Marshall. I don't know how else to explain it. I paced the room, fury and heartbreak colliding inside me. You need this? I need a wife who doesn't mistake betrayal for self-discovery. I can't believe this is even a conversation, I said, my voice thick with disbelief. This isn't who we are. It's not who I am. With a weary sigh, she sank onto the edge of the bed, her movements heavy. My decision's final, Marshall. I'm leaving, she said quietly. I don't want to keep fighting, she added. I stopped pacing and met her gaze, my chest tightening. So that's it? You've just decided? Just like that? Yes, she replied firmly. I'm not going to change my mind. As Virginia flitted around the room getting ready for the night's party, I remained at the desk, staring blankly at my phone. In the mirror's reflection, she looked stunning, humming softly as she curled her hair and applied her lipstick with delicate care. Meanwhile, I quietly booked the next flight out, scheduled to leave in just a few hours. My plan was simple: disappear before she stumbled back from her night, leaving only an empty room behind. Deep down, I knew the truth. Whatever we had was already over. She had made her choice, and with it, closed the door on us. Once my ticket was confirmed, I immediately canceled her return flight. How she'd get home wasn't my concern anymore. Without hesitation, I logged into our shared bank account and transferred every cent into my personal one. She wouldn't be wasting another dollar of what we built on wild nights in Vegas. Setting the phone down, I exhaled a sharp, bitter breath, the combined weight of anger and grief pressing hard against my ribs. As dusk draped itself over the city, she finally finished dressing. She wore a glittering, tight-fitting dress that hugged every curve, paired with high heels that made her legs seem endless. Catching me watching her, she tilted her head slightly. "What?" she asked, a faint scowl creasing her brow. I stood from the chair and shook my head slowly. "Nothing," I muttered under my breath. She adjusted her earrings with a distracted air, a flicker of a smile playing at her lips. "Are you absolutely sure you don't want to come with me, Marshall? Maybe it would do us some good," she offered. A dry, humorless laugh escaped me. "Good for us," I repeated, disbelief sharpening my voice. "Listen to yourself, Virginia," I snapped. "You're walking out that door, knowing full well what it means." "It doesn't have to mean anything," she shot back, folding her arms defensively. "You're the one making this into some huge drama." I stepped closer, my voice rising despite myself. "You really believe that throwing away a marriage is no big deal? That being selfish and disrespectful is just something I should swallow?" Grinding my teeth, I warned her through a clenched jaw, "You walk out that door and it's done. No coming back." Leaning against the dresser, she let out an exasperated sigh. "You're so damn rigid, Marshall. Everything is black or white with you. God, I wish you knew how to just live a little, she said bitterly. She grabbed her purse and strode toward the door. With her hand on the knob, she glanced over her shoulder. I'll be back late, she said, her tone sharp and defiant. Don't bother waiting up. I said nothing. The door closed behind her with a final, hollow click. As soon as the silence settled over the room, I yanked my suitcase from the closet and started throwing my clothes into it in a frenzy, not caring how they landed. My heart twisted painfully in my chest, but I forced myself to push through. This wasn't a time for second thoughts. When the suitcase was zipped and packed, I stood surveying the room. It didn't feel like leaving a hotel. It felt like walking away from 7 years of my life. Maybe that's exactly what it was. While Virginia was likely arriving at her party, laughing and drinking, I was already en route to the airport, racing toward a future she would no longer be part of. I landed back home around 2 in the morning, exhausted but resolute. At the house, I dropped my bag and collapsed onto the bed, staring up at the blank ceiling. Sleep was elusive, but eventually the heavy, hollow silence dragged me under into a shallow, uneasy sleep. The next morning, my phone buzzed relentlessly on the nightstand. Half asleep, I grabbed it and saw Virginia's name flashing again and again across the screen, a flood of missed calls, her desperation practically screaming through the notifications. With a tired sigh, I tossed the phone aside, letting it buzz uselessly as another call came through. After almost an hour of non-stop ringing, I finally picked up. "Marshall, where are you?" she cried, her voice thick with panic. "Why is all your stuff gone?" "I'm home," I replied flatly. "I warned you," I continued, my voice even and cold. "Go to that party, and it's over. You chose." "What do you mean you're home?" she shouted. "You just left? Without even telling me?" "I didn't owe you that," I said icily. "You made your decision, Virginia. You wanted to run off and act like you were single? Fine. But I'm not going to be your fool. You're making this way bigger than it was," she snapped, her voice cracking under the strain. "It was just one night. How can you be so heartless?" "Heartless," I repeated, my voice slicing through the phone. "You call this heartless? You knew what walking out that door meant. You still did it." On the other end of the line, I heard her breathing hitch, sharp and shallow. "I didn't think you'd actually leave," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I thought you'd cool off. We could fix it." "There's nothing left to fix," I said, my voice a stone wall. "You walked out. You ended it. Oh, and just so you know, I canceled your flight back. You'll have to figure it out on your own." "You did what?" she screamed, her voice shattering through the receiver. "You can't just walk away like this." "What am I supposed to do?" she cried out, her voice rising in panic. "That's not my concern anymore," I answered, my tone ice cold, refusing to let her guilt pull me back in. "I don't want you returning, Virginia." "We're over. I'm filing for divorce first thing tomorrow," I continued, my voice unwavering. "I don't ever want to see you again." "You're leaving me?" she choked out between sobs, her voice breaking under the weight of it. "Marshall, please. We can work through this." "It was just a mistake," she insisted, desperation thick in her voice. "No," I snapped, cutting her off without hesitation. "This wasn't a mistake, Virginia. It was a conscious decision, and now I'm making mine." "It's finished," I said firmly. "Your things will be sent to your mother's house. Don't come back here." All I heard on the line was the sound of her uneven breathing. Whether she was trying to hold back tears or muster another plea, it no longer mattered to me. "I have nothing more to say to you," I said after a long, heavy silence. "Goodbye, Virginia." I ended the call before she could respond, tossed my phone onto the couch, and leaned back with a long, exhausted breath. My heart hurt, but at the same time, a strange calm washed over me. I had finally done what had to be done. I had severed ties with something that had poisoned my life, and there was no going back. The days that followed blurred together in a mess of paperwork and long meetings with my lawyer. Virginia bombarded me with emails and messages, begging for another chance. but I stayed silent. My decision was made. I reached out to Virginia's mother, explained the situation, and told her that her daughter's belongings would be sent to her. She sounded stunned. "Are you absolutely certain, Marshall?" she asked, disbelief evident in her voice. I told her everything, the argument, the betrayal, and my decision to walk away for good. "I just can't believe this," she murmured, grief heavy in her words. "I never thought it would come to this." "I'm sorry," I said, doing my best to keep my voice steady. "But it's over. There's no changing that." There was a long, aching silence before she spoke again. "I just don't understand," she said quietly. "You two always seemed so happy together." "We weren't," I replied simply, the truth cutting deeper into me than I expected. "I have to take care of myself now." After hanging up, I sat down with my lawyer and officially began the divorce proceedings. Virginia's attorney proposed mediation, but I refused. There was nothing left to negotiate. She had made her choices, and I was making mine. The court dates passed, each one pulling me closer to a clean break. Eventually, the divorce was finalized. I hadn't heard from Virginia since, and honestly, I didn't know if I ever wanted to. Life after the divorce felt strange, quiet, peaceful, and occasionally unsettling. I poured my energy into the parts of my life I had long ignored. Even though Virginia would sometimes cross my mind, deep down, I knew I never wanted to go back to the life we shared. One afternoon, an email from her appeared in my inbox, an apology, full of sorrow and regret. But it came too late. I deleted it after reading only the first line. That chapter of my life was over. I was moving forward. In time, I met someone new, someone who valued honesty and respect, things I hadn't realized I had been missing for so long. I didn't long for the past. The divorce had been painful, yes, but it had been necessary. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt free. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you